So you completed your doctorate looking into teacher well-being and also the relationship between kind of parents that were also teachers and how they were kind of getting on in the classroom. And it's something that, from my own personal experience, I became a dad 3 years ago, and I went part-time in order to share childcare with my wife. And I remember thinking over the summer holidays, when I was getting those kind of teacher anxiety dreams and things, and I kept thinking to myself, actually, I'm only going to be 3 days a week. It's going to be absolutely fine. And I kind of calmed myself down thinking this is going to be easy compared to 5 days a week. And actually that year, my first year, being a dad, being a part-time teacher, trying to juggle those things was actually my hardest year in teaching apart from my NQT year. So what did you discover when completing your doctorate, and what nuggets can you give parent teachers out there that are trying to juggle being a good dad or being a good mum and being a good teacher as well?
Well, just a little bit of background. So I signed up for the doctorate in 2010 when my youngest daughter Sasha was 1.
Wow.
In retrospect, this is complete and utter insanity. But I was working under a head who believed anything was possible, and he spotted this opportunity. Professionally, I suppose in the last 3 years or so, I'd been a little bit restless, and he could always spot that, looking for something a bit different and a bit new. And I started this doctorate, and my supervisor at the time, Paul Miller, Professor Paul Miller, I should say, said, when you're choosing a topic, choose something you live, breathe, and eat for breakfast. So I effectively researched and wrote my life at the time. And it was, as well as being, utterly enlightening, at times maddeningly difficult. I've forgotten all of the big words now. It was quite therapeutic. It was quite therapeutic to read around the horrors, the horror stories, and the what I call the role enrichment, the things that actually become a lot better, a lot richer for being a parent and a teacher. I looked at men as well as women, fathers as well as mothers. And one of the things I did find out, which ran against what I would have expected, is that those feelings of role conflict, guilt, having to put your career on hold, not quite doing things as well as you possibly could, not progressing up the career ladder as fast as you might have hoped to, are just as acute for fathers as they are for mothers. John Tomzett wrote an amazing blog about it, what I've learned about being a father and a teacher, which moved me to tears, the honesty of this blog, feeling that he had just neglected his son, and how that impacted on him. So that was one of the key findings. I mean, what I looked at was the two sides. So I looked at the seesaw, the role enrichment and the role conflict. And the role conflict we've touched on briefly, the guilt, the perfectionism, the loss of income, the loss of salary, the needing to go part-time, which may have a detrimental effect on the future. The main finding from that one, and this sounds trite, it sounds easy to say, is that guilt and perfectionism have no useful purpose in our lives at all. And if someone can find a piece of research to the contrary, then I'd be genuinely interested in reading it. Once I realised that, and I got into the Donald Winnicott mantra of, good enough, it actually really helped me. I'm a good enough mother. I might work, and this is my choice to work, and I have, parents, even more so than teachers, can be incredibly judgmental of one another's decisions. I choose to work. My children are fine. They're a bit unwashed sometimes. But, this is my choice. The role enrichment stuff was really, really interesting. So just one aside from that, I'm not saying for a second that parents make better teachers or vice versa at all. There's no, a number of people said to me, well, why don't you write about teachers with dogs? Why don't you write about teachers who are carers? And it was almost as if I was being exclusive. But many of the lessons I learned actually apply equally to parents and non-parents. And bizarrely, I sometimes say to NQTs, imagine you have children at home. Imagine you have, and you'll relate to this, imagine you have two tiny creatures taking up every second of your time and energy. Checking your school email is not an option if you've got a child who's prone to eating cat food. True story. So imagine, actually compartmentalize that time as if there was a tiny creature demanding all 3 hours of it. So that bath time, bedtime routine we all do, well, why don't you take that and go for a run, you lucky bugger, because you can. Why don't you take that and go to the cinema? Why don't you just go out with an old friend? So in terms of role enrichment, there was a really, really moving quote from a colleague who I interviewed, and she said that since becoming a parent, she liked to imagine the parents of her students, it's scary, I suppose, in one way, lining the walls of her classroom and thinking, well, is it good enough for them? Is what I'm giving their child good enough for them? And it really made her up her game. And that's echoed actually in my current boss's mantra. Is if it's not good enough for my child, it's not good enough. Mm-hmm. And you realise that these aren't just small people. Well, it never was just a job, but that some of these are people's children. You know, this is the investment you're making in these young people is incredible. And I did find that my relationship with my students changed a lot after becoming a parent.
They tell me life is beautiful.